Seattle Public Schools. I'm actually in the Wenatchee School District, and I was looking for resources online. I'm a CASA volunteer, and I came across a student who needed some advocacy in special education, and I was looking for local resources, and then I needed to look for broader resources, and I came across your PTSA, and you guys have a lot of good things going. And then I saw this webinar, and so I was like, great. So
We're excited to have you. We always love to see our Eastern Washington
yeah,
families joining us. We're always excited to have people from all over the state with us. So yay. Thanks for
good.
coming.
Yeah.
Hi, Robert. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Um,
How you doing? My name is Robert Castile, and I'm just looking to learn and grow pretty much. The skills and everything that I learn and pick up and utilize to be able to put in other areas and help people and just better others' lives.
Great. Well, we love having you. Thanks for being here with us. And let's see, Kate, you want to go next?
I'm Kate Campbell. I'm the communications chair for SSC PTSA, and I have a son who's in second grade in the Seattle School District.
Thank you. And she's our communication guru. So Erica, you were able to find us because of her nice work putting our word out there. So that's great. Laura, did you want to say a quick hi and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Laura, and I am the mother of a kiddo in middle school who is a part of the Focus program.
Okay. Great. Thanks for being here with us. And Yana, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Hi there. This is Yana Parker. I'm still sick. I've been sick
my
for a
Lord.
month now. So sorry, I'm gonna be off camera today. But I'm really excited to be here at least. And here's the new, the old, and refresh. And I am a current president of the Seattle Special Education PTSA. And I have two kids. One of them is a recent graduate of SPS, and one is in 8th grade, both of them students with disabilities with IEPs. And this is advocacy is my passion, specifically legislative advocacy. So I'm excited for what Ramona has to say, has to share with us today. Thank you for being here, Ramona.
All right, am I on?
Thank you for being here, Ramona, and you're on, yes.
Okay, all right. So, hi everyone. I am Ramona Hattendorf. See if I always stumble on my title. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Civic Engagement at the ARC of King County. And I got my start, I had a different career a long time ago in newspapers. I was an editor. And I got my start in advocacy, like you guys, as a parent in Seattle Public Schools in my case. And anyways, I also had a PTA journey. And it actually ended up leading to this career I have now. So today, I'm going to mostly talk about like messaging and how to frame your story. To kind of know when it's good to message, you have to have some sense of how the legislator works. But I'm not going to go into the weeds of the legislator, mainly because that's a 2-hour presentation in and of itself. So if it's okay, I'm going to focus more on messaging tonight. But I am available if you have questions and if we have time. So the ARC of King County, if you're not familiar, we support specifically people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So a smaller population within the wider disability community. And we support people across the lifespan. So, prenatal diagnosis through end-of-life care. And so we do a lot with education, but we do housing, we do health, we do different civil rights legislation. We have a pretty large scope because essentially anything that touches your life is something that we have to be concerned about. So that's a little bit who we are. And then I always try to frame public policy before I go into any of these presentations, because a lot of people think about public policy rightly as those are our laws. Those are the, the laws that we need to follow, the rules that we follow for the public. And that's very true. They are. They're the rules that we agree to that we're going to follow. This is how we're going to invest. This is how we're going to treat each other. That's public policy. But at least in the United States, public policy also means the public has the ability to influence. In fact, there's an expectation that the public can influence public policy. So I really like to encourage people to think of it as really literally, this is your public policy. There's actually rules in place to ensure that you can participate in public policy. So you should. If you can and you're interested, you absolutely should, because these decisions, they affect you, they affect your family, they affect your community. And if you don't speak up and let people know what you want and you need, there's a very good chance our public policy will not reflect what you actually need to be successful in the community or what your child needs in the community. So I always just like to plug that. You're not talking about somebody else. This is yours. So how do you influence public policy? And this is where it's tough. This is where you kind of have to be aligned with somebody. And this is why it's good that you're plugged into the PTA, because they can send you some information. But you need to know who to contact. You need to know when to contact them. And you need to know what to say. So who to contact? Your legislators. And by this, I mean your actual legislators. So our state is divided into districts. And each state legislative district, there's 3. You have 2 representatives in the House of Representatives, and you have 1 senator. And so when I say your legislators, literally the people who represent you. So you want to talk with them, you want to establish a relationship with them, and that's very important. But if you're working on a specific bill, if you want to see a specific piece of legislation passed, then you also want to make sure that you're connecting with the committee that's actually going to be working on that bill. So you have your personal legislators, because they're ultimately going to vote on the bill off the floor, and they can also help put pressure on committees to, move it along. They can talk about your bill when the legislators get together in caucus and they're talking. You want your legislator on board. But to be able to get to a floor vote, there's a whole process, and I'll briefly go over that. There's a whole process, and a lot of that process, it has to go through different committees. So if there's something specific you want, not just something general, like if you're mainly just, I need investment in education, your legislators would probably be fine. If you need a specific policy bill that you want to see, say you want to end restraint and isolation, then you're going to also want to tag the committees. And then those committees have leaders, and those leaders are gatekeepers. So you also might want to write letters specifically to the leadership of committees. And yeah, and then at the end, some people like to contact the governor. I personally haven't contacted the governor for anything, but the governor is at the end of the process, and they sign the bills into law. They can veto a bill, and they can also veto parts of a bill. And I don't know that I've really seen one recently veto a bill, but I have seen them veto parts of the budget. Yeah, and I've seen them veto parts of bills. So there is the governor, so you can contact the governor as well. And then also, you might also want to reach out to allies who can help build the cause. And by that, it's like, hey, this is a bill we're working on. Say someone in the PTA, hey, we're working on this bill. Are you working on this, Ramona? Are the ARCs in the state working on this? And it's kind of like, can we work together? And so sometimes people will coordinate with each other. And in addition to running the legislators, they'll let other people who they think might be friends on the issue, let them know about it too. So are there any questions about that part, about who you might want to contact? Yep. Okay. Oh, yeah. And then let me see. Let me I didn't have my chat on. Okay. All right. So then the next part is when, and this is where we'll just go really briefly into the process, but when do you want to contact them? So the timing is important. During a public hearing, that's a good time to contact them. That's called testimony. Or to request a public hearing. Sometimes the bill's been introduced, doesn't have a hearing yet. And so you might want to send people, especially the chair, I know, saying, will you please hear this bill? It's so important, X, Y, and Z. You also might, sometimes they hear it, and that's when they take public testimony, but then they don't actually vote it out of committee, or you're not sure if they're going to vote it out of committee, or maybe they won't have time to vote it out of committee. So that might be another time when you email members of the committee or you email the chair and the vice chair and you say, will you please vote on this? It's so important because X. Also, there might be different times in the process when somebody puts out a call, like we need to get people to help push this along. So, and again, I keep promising it, there really is. There's a little graphic that shows a little bit of the process. But by that, it's like you're going to have your policy committee. If this bill is going to cost money, it's going to go to something called the fiscal committee. And then after, if it passes the policy committee and it passes the fiscal committee, all bills go to something called the Rules Committee, and a lot of bills die in rules. And the Rules Committee is basically the committee that says, yeah, this bill is okay, it's timely, it's important, it looks like it's in good shape. Let's go ahead and take it to the floor for a vote of everyone. So it also has to get out of the Rules Committee. And then if it's on the floor, you have to make sure the clock doesn't run out. So during these different times, you might also hear calls to action like, yes, please email your legislators. Yes, email these specific legislators. Yes, please email the House leader or the floor leader or the different people who have control over getting this to a vote. So there's a lot of different times in the process when you want to do it. But at the minimum, your legislator is good. Like if all this other stuff is just kind of making your head explode, your legislator is good. But a lot of the action alerts you'll see, they might be to your legislator or they might be specifically to a committee person. And then also don't forget, it's like, say thank you. If they get it out of the committee, thank them. If they get it off the floor, thank them. It's important. It's important for that bill, but it's also important for relationships going forward for the next piece of legislation. And thank you so much, Mel, for having these links ready to go. They redid the website this year. I think
Yeah,
it's
it looks pretty good, actually, I have to say.
yeah, it's like they have, I'm still looking around like, wait, do they have this? And they have everything. And I think it's easier to navigate. So I'm going to show you two visuals just so you have a sense of like what's going on. A bill can be in, you have two chambers. You have the House, you have the Senate, and a bill can be introduced in either one. You can even have a bill that basically is the same bill introduced in both at the same time. For a bill to make it all the way off this game board with a win-win-win, it actually needs to pass through both chambers. So if it starts in the House, it needs to clear the House, and then it needs to go to the Senate and clear the Senate, and vice versa. If it starts in the Senate, it needs to pass out of the Senate, and then it needs to pass out of the House. And it has to be the same version at the end. So the House might pass a bill, the Senate might amend it, and then the House has to agree to what the Senate said yes or no. So again, these are all different times when you might hear like, we need messages because. So the first one would be the fiscal, and there will be a public hearing. Again, this is like the public voice and public policy. There will be a hearing and if it gets called up. Not every bill gets a hearing. But if it's going to move and it's going to get a hearing, there will be a public hearing, and that gives you an opportunity. And you can either do testimony, you can do live testimony, you can write testimony. So it might be easier just to write in testimony. They also have something now. One of the benefits that came out of the pandemic is they have bill sign-in. They've always had bill sign-in, but you had to be physically on campus to sign into a bill. In fact, there were sheets of paper and you had to sign in on a sheet of paper. And now you can just electronically, they open it up like a day before, you can sign in and they close it an hour before, but you basically just say yes or no. So these are different things you can do at the policy, you can do at the fiscal. You do not get to sign in on rules, unfortunately. Rules is kind of a secretive committee. But you can still look up and see who the members are on rules and you can email them. And then, of course, there's the floor. And then, and when you go to that website, you can email all legislators, a few legislators, they're all contactable. So that's kind of the step of the flow. Yes, Yana. I'm not, yeah,
Yeah,
there you
I don't know if this is a good time to ask. I'm usually the first one to do this just to break the ice, so not forgetting I'm mute. But I have a question that maybe you'll cover it later, so just feel free to just wait. But I've heard, and I'm sure you've noticed that sometimes testifiers are being stopped by the chair of the committee when they are not addressing something that's in their view not part of their work. And you probably know where I'm heading with this. So I wonder what you would say, how to draw the line or how to go about, let's say there's a bill that's about funding and it's going through a committee that's about rules about education, right? So I wonder what tips, because I will say that it threw many of us off, that
go.
were stopped, basically.
Yeah, and I've been stopped. It's very frustrating. And I was actually stopped. I think you're probably thinking one committee in particular, and I was stopped in another committee, and I'm still mad. It's been about a year. I'm still mad. I've been stopped before. So just so you know, so the chairs of these committees have a lot of power. They can decide whether they want to hear a bill, and you never know exactly how much time you're going to have. Usually you have 2 minutes, but if there's a lot of bills on the agenda, it's not uncommon for them to say you have 60 seconds and they will cut you off. It depends on the chair. Some chairs are a lot more lenient and some are like, you're done, off. And then sometimes they're very, especially if there's only like one or two people and they don't have a lot of bills, some committees are very relaxed. You can go on for 5 minutes. They're going to ask questions. It's just a friendly chat. And another ones, and especially education, they tend to have packed schedules. So they have a lot of bills. They have a lot of people signed on. And if they can't get that bill, if they can't get that bill through the process, it's dead. So you actually do want to see that bill go through the process, even though it's hard in the moment. So this is a strategy. You don't get too upset because the ultimate goal is you want the bill through the process. And if you speaking for too long is going to hold up that bill, that's not a good thing. But what they'll do sometimes is they'll say, like, if somebody has already said it, don't repeat it. So you want to listen to what other people are saying, and then you can just say, I absolutely echo that. I'm a mom. I have lived experience, whatever your story is. I'm a teacher. This happens to me all the time. I just really want to reinforce what you heard. Please pass this bill. I mean, if you don't need 60 seconds, take 5. They'll appreciate it. So that's one thing, is like, do pay attention to that. Sometimes it's a policy and they don't want to, it gets kind of tough with education because it's kind of an open interpretation. Can you remember exactly like what happened? And then maybe I can give you the net strategy, because I kind of remember her cutting you off.
Yeah, it was not just me, it was also some legislators presenting their bill,
Ah,
and then being told, we're not going to talk about money here.
yeah,
We're only going to talk about the policy.
policy part of
And
it.
when the policy includes the money, that's kind of like a gray area. So
Yeah.
I was just looking for some
Oh,
tips because I was
oh,
like, okay, quickly scratching what I'm saying.
yeah. So like say it was about ending the cap on funding special education. So if this is a policy committee, you don't want to talk about how, like, don't focus on we need money to get this done, we need funding to get this done. What you could focus on is what I have seen, this is the effect it's had on my child, is that they're not able to get these services and now they're behind. So always go, it's also, that's another tip, especially with education stuff. Always talk about the student, the child.
The impact, right?
Yeah, on the student, the child, because other people might be talking about the system, school, like a lot of your school official type people, they're going to be talking about like from a district, from a very high, like, we need to do this, and this is going to be a strain, and we need this to be able to meet our obligation. They're going to be talking about the system. And it's really powerful. And it's also what you guys know is bring it home. Talk about your child, the child you tutor, the child you teach, your child's friend, whatever. Bring it home, talk about the friend. And so if it's policy, think about like, how is this going to affect their life? So like in the instance of the CAP, that happens when you only allow, how to explain the CAP? If you can only have a certain percentage of kids for funding. So say a school district has 20% of their children, of their students require special education services. They only get funding for 16%. So they get funding per student and they gather a pool of money and then they get frozen because they only get to 16%. And so then they have to spread that funding more thinly. Whereas if a school has 16%, like they're right, ding, 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 which by the way, Seattle Public Schools is 16% this year, ding, 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 then they don't have to stretch it as thinly. So that a policy there would be, is really essential that all students get the supports that they need. And if, yeah, I would even go, and if you do that, they don't get the support, she might call that funding. I would just say, you know, and when they don't get the supports that they need, this is what happens to them. So this kind of a policy can actually hurt students because they're not able to get their services. It's tough. We're talking about, just so you know, the chair of the education committee. This is something it's come up within her committee over the years. So yeah, just be prepared. But then it's the flip in fiscal. So fiscal is in the House, it's called an Appropriations Committee, and the Senate's called Ways and Means. They don't want to hear about policy. And fiscal, like they go through, this is where you're going to get 60 seconds if you want to speak, which is why I always encourage send in the written, you know, make it concise. Don't go on for pages and pages, but, you know, don't save yourself the angst of trying to, you know, say everything you need to say in 60 seconds, just send it in written. But in the fiscal committee, they don't want to hear about the policy. They just want to hear about why is this a good investment? Is it an accurate assessment? What happens when the bills, when they go through policy, they just kind of consider, is this a good policy? Is this good public policy? Do we need it? Does this seem like a good solution? And then if it looks like it's going to proceed, staff will do analysis and they'll put a price tag on that bill. And they'll say, to end the cap, it's going to cost us $26 million over the next 2 years. And so that would be one where you would say this $26 million is so important to invest because XYZ. Or sometimes it's like, I don't think that fiscal note is correct. I actually think it's much lower or much higher, but they don't want to hear about the policy. So yeah, that's my advice for you, Yana. Yeah. But just beware. It's like, and yeah, and sometimes you go in and you think you're going to have 2 minutes and they tell you, by the way, it's 60 seconds. So I always have a backup plan. So here's another visual of the legislative session called Path to Passage. And I put a link on there so you can open it up and see it later. So it just shows you the different steps. You got your policy hearing, and then they're going to take executive action. You can testify at the policy hearing. And then you're going to have likely a fiscal hearing, and then they'll take executive action, and then you'll have the rules committee, and then step 5. And so and then it plays through in the other chamber, and then you have what's called reconciliation. So that's when both versions of the bill, they have to agree to it, and they don't always agree. Sometimes bills die because they can't agree on a reconciliation. And then it gets signed in. So this is just another visual. And these different steps have deadlines. So, you know, if bills don't pass at a certain point, then they quote unquote die. Though in our session, what we do is what's called a 2-year session. It's called a biennium. And anything that dies in year 1 can come back in year 2. So, and then just so you know, I put in for the first chamber, March 12th is when bills have to pass out of the first chamber. So if your bill didn't pass one of the chambers by March 12th, then it's probably not. I mean, theoretically, any bill can be brought back at any time. but generally they kind of go by the deadlines. And then April 27th is the last day of the session, just to give yourself some time. And you can also see by that there'll be a lot of time in the beginning, but it's going to be really, really, really quick on the back end. So just so you know. And this is what's called a bill page looks like. You have a title, you have your sponsors. The first name is the lead sponsor. So that's something else. Like when you're doing thank you notes, you're not going to have to, in this case, it was Senator Rolfus. You don't have to write a letter to Senator Rolfus and saying, please support this bill because she sponsored it, or to Senator Robinson, but you would want to send a note saying, thank you so much for supporting this bill. This is what it means to me. And by the way, if these little personal stories that you share, if they're powerful, I have heard these little personal stories then become talking points that they in turn use within their caucus, or they in turn use these personal stories on the floor. So, you are really not only letting them know that you support the bill, you're giving them ammunition to, I don't know if that's the right word, but you're giving them tools that they then can share and stories they can share out with others. So you can see the bill, there's like, it goes through, it'll show you through the process. The main thing I wanted to do is if you clicked on the bill, like it's lower down, it's not on this, you can read the bill text, you can read a summary of the bill, so it's a little bit more readable. But the big takeaway on this one, it says comment on this bill. So you can click on that box, and then there's a form that comes up and it asks, do you support, do you not? And then you fill it out, and that goes to your legislator. So, and that is a really easy way. So like in the PTA sends out alerts saying like, we support 5187, we urge your support. You can go into the website and you can type in 5187, a bill page will come up, and you can comment on this bill, and that will go to your legislator. And I really encourage you, if you're doing your legislator, to use this, because it just makes it easier for their assistants to keep track of who's writing in on the bills. Yeah.
And Ramona, and does that go into the legislative record when you say you support or don't support the bill?
So when you're
No?
commenting, I don't know, honestly, if you're on this one, if you sign in on a bill when it's in committee,
Uh-huh.
that's something that goes on the record. Like, so they can see
Okay.
if the bill had 3 people who signed in, or they can see a bill had 2,000 people to sign in. And again, like they're going to get a couple thousand bills. They'll
Right.
probably get through less than 1,000 will actually pass. Maybe a few hundred will actually pass. So it's like bills that have a lot of momentum. They seem to have a lot of interest, not too controversial. Those are bills that they're probably going to try to get through. So yeah, so you have comment on this bill. If this bill was going to be heard in committee, there would also be a little tab on there to help you sign up for a committee hearing. But that's what a bill page looks like. Sometimes you'll see action alerts, and they, like you click on it and there's a pre-written note, a letter. Always on, if you do that, first of all, usually you can write your own. Like you can take that and you can like get rid of it all and write your own version. But a lot of times what's really handy, there's something pre-written on the top. Just add in like who you are and why you like this bill. So just add in a little paragraph and make that your own. But if you're not doing an action alert, if you're just sending in testimony, anything like that, then what I'm going to go through next will help you out. So should you contact your legislators? If you haven't yet, I would really encourage you to send them a note just early in the session, just saying, just a general communication, like, and your thing may not be education funding, but just to say it is, because it's easy. It's like, I really want to make sure that you support our students this year. They really need to make sure we have funding. We really need to make sure, transportation is covered, whatever your issue is. And then again, when you hear about a specific bill that you're hearing about through your PTA channels, or the ARC channels or whatever you're linked to, that would also be a good time where you can go to that bill page and you can send them and say, yeah, earlier I said, I really hope you support students. This bill will really support students. So yeah. Oh, and also budget is really important. And if any of the people here tonight or anyone you know really education spending is something you care about, I would weigh in. Like one of the first bills to be heard is going to be the governor's proposal. So, and often that is the first week. So next week there will probably be a budget hearing. And I really encourage people to weigh in early at this hearing, because then it's going to go quiet and you don't get to weigh in on the budget until the very end of the process, like in April. And you know what? Throughout this whole session, they're writing that budget. And by the time they actually release it in April, you really don't have much ability to influence it.
Yeah, and Inslee didn't put much money towards
You
anything.
didn't put it
Yeah.
in. Yeah. Yeah. So you're
He
not
was
going to
happy with raising the cap, and he's like, no, I'm good.
I don't think he raised the cap this time. He didn't put any money into
No, last year. I mean,
Oh,
he was,
yeah, last
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So when that budget bill comes out and there'll be a link and you can send in testimony, I would do that and then I would just email, your letter saying, this is a really bare bone budget. I understand you're worried, concerned, but we absolutely have to make X, Y, and Z a priority. And I don't know if you support revenue. Some groups support revenue is a nice way of saying more taxes. So I don't know if you support that, if you have a position personally about more taxes or the type of taxes. But if you do, or you don't, that would be the time to say, yes, you really need to prioritize it and you need to do it through this way. It's like, you really need to pass progressive revenue and do that, or don't pass taxes. What you really need to do is whatever your position is. I'm not here to tell you what your position is. I'm just tell you, weigh in on budget early. Don't wait till the very end because it's too late to influence it. You might be able to get like a line item for a pilot study for like 500,000, but you're not going to be able to get anything big. Yeah. Yana.
So this is Yana. So I'm wondering with the budget, because I was in one town hall with Representative Paulette, and it sounded like he would like to pass the budget early. And I didn't have enough time to like ask clarifying questions. How can you do that? So I wonder how much that you said that it doesn't really, we don't get to influence it much at the end of the session, right? Which is more like a final. So what do we say? How do we, I mean, you kind of touched on that, but like, is there like a live testimony on the
Yeah,
governor's
the governor's budget, there'll be live testimony, so you can sign in. And it actually, a lot of times, especially, see which, I should know this, I've done it often enough, but the chambers, sometimes you just do the bill and sometimes they have it by, like, do you want to talk about the education part? Do you want to talk about this part? So you can sign in pro or con. You can also sign in other. So I would go ahead and sign in, and you can both sign in, and that's just when you click yes or no and submit written testimony. You can also do live testimony, but I'm going to tell you, these hearings are about 5 hours long and you get 60 seconds. So if you want to, go for it. But I would sign in and do written testimony, and I would do that in the beginning. They have to do the budget at the very end. I mean, they can start assembling it and putting it together at the beginning. The reason why they can't pass until the very end, though, is that all those policy bills, any other bill they're hearing, they have to be paid for in the budget. So they can't actually pass the budget until they know all the policy bills. So they can't pass the budget. They can hear about the budget in the beginning, but you can't actually pass it to the end. But maybe what they could do, though, if there was something big, like I know he wants to get more funding for special education, do something called increase the multiplier, lift the cap. There's a few things with special education this year. There might be a separate bill that he wants to get passed, because that would be one, like, pass that request first, because then your finance committee is going to have to start talking about, okay, how we're going to pay for this. And then if they already know that they have the initiative to pass, like, we know the public wants this done and we want to do it, so let's pass this bill, and that bill goes on its way, then finance people have to say, oh, how are we going to pay for this bill? oh, well, we can do this. So that's a strategy if a bill's going to cost money, but the actual budget is the very end.
So is that, this is Yana, so is that kind of prioritizing that particular funding?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's just a way of saying early in the process. Because if you come in with something big at the end, they're going to say, oh, too late, no money. We don't have enough political willpower. So if you pass something with a big price tag early and get a lot of momentum early, then that tells the budget writing committee and the finance committee. And by the way, they used to do it all together, but now the House has a separate finance committee, and that committee hears tax things. The Senate still just has Ways and Means. They don't have a separate finance committee, but they do have a subcommittee now within Ways and Means that's going to hear about finance. And on the House, I believe it's April Berg, who is not King County. She's a Snohomish County. And in the Senate, it's Senator Frame, who's a Seattle person. So it's always good to know. And also, you're the Seattle Special Education PTSA. So when I did PTSA, I wasn't with the Special Education PTSA, but I was on the Seattle Council PTSA. I considered all of the Seattle legislators my legislators. So I would like do my own personal, but I would also like on behalf of the Seattle, because they represent all of Seattle kids. So I very loosely, I take a broad definition of who is my legislator when I'm putting on my advocacy hat. So here, this is just a Lily 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 point guide just to do a basic message. And it's like, once you get used to this, you can like elaborate and you can, make your story very personal if you want, but this will just give you your basics. And again, it's like, especially if you're doing live testimony, you only have a little bit of time. So you don't want to get too elaborate. If you have a 10-minute story, you have to have an individual meeting with the legislator. You're never going to be able to tell that 10-minute story. And you can't, and if you send a letter that's 20 pages long or 5 pages long, they're really not going to have time to read it and absorb it, because again, hundreds of bills are coming across their desk. So you really, at this point, really need to be kind of really to the point. They always call about interim. So after the session is over, you can always arrange to meet your legislators or legislators of key committees, like after the session, like say between May and December. You can always do a one-on-one where you have a little bit more time. During session, you can always try to make an appointment with the legislator during session. If they are newer and younger and they don't have a lot of committees, you can probably get an appointment with them. If they're in senior leadership, you probably will not get an appointment with them just because they have to spend a lot more time in their committee meetings and things like that and planning sessions, but you can get an appointment with their staff, and is just as good to get an appointment with the staff. Never turn down an appointment with the staff. So on a message, I'll go through these individually with individual slides, but so who are you? And by that, your name, but also your identifier. I'm a teacher, I'm a parent, I work in this field. Like, what is it about you that makes you an authority on this, that they should listen to you? What quality about you is like, why should I listen to you and, not somebody else? Or what is your connection to this issue? And then like, especially if you have lived experience, that's really good to let them know about that. And then what is your issue? Why do you care? Why should they care? And then what should they do? And here's an example. In this case, this isn't terribly personal because this is testimony I did on behalf of the ARC of King County. So good afternoon, Chair, committee members. I'm Ramona Hattendorf, the ARC of King County, speaking in support of, and I name the bill. And by the way, if you do testimony, you always have to introduce yourself. It's just for the record. You have to say your name. The ARC protects and promotes the rights of people with IDD, helps build inclusive communities. We serve XX. So I'm giving them some context of who I am and why I might want to be there speaking about this. The issue, in this case, the bills, HB 1980 allows people to access both employment support and community inclusion. This is important. And I gave a little bit more information about why that's important. Why I care. DDA services are habilitative. This means helping people learn, keep, or maintain skills they're not typically developing. They need ongoing skill development. And day services are going to help them build these essential skills. So that's why I care about this. Why should the audience care? In this case, the audience are the legislators. Employment support, it's really great, but people need this as well as this. This was the bill about you could have both services instead of one or the other. And so then I gave a little case there, and then my action was please support and move this bill to session. Thank you. I was sitting in this, and this was not a budget hearing. This is just a policy committee hearing. This was maybe about a minute and a half. I usually don't go for 2 minutes because they always have you cut it. And sure enough, they said, we're running out of time. You have 60 seconds. So this was my 60-second version. Again, though, identified who I was, briefly what the issue is, why I care. I just took out some extra words. So if you do want to do live, always have a shorter version. And also, honestly, if they are in a committee and they're hearing 30 people speak on one bill, after a certain point, they just can't absorb any more information. So if you're doing anything live in testimony, it's really important to just give them one takeaway. Like I don't know if it was the bill ended up passing, but I don't know if I influenced it. But what I decided to do was really, yes, we need this, and so I kept repeating yes, and because that's really what I wanted them to take away. Like, yes, this is important, but this is also critical, and they need both. And so I just wanted a simple concept in their head. I didn't want to load them down with all this different data points. I didn't want to load them down with a million different reasons. I just wanted to give them something simple, almost like a jingle that would stay in their heads so they could remember this bill. So now I hope you do this because this is actually very helpful. But I want to take a few minutes and I want to walk you through this, and I want you to do a message. And if you have something that you're thinking about that you want to support and communicate, go ahead and use that. If you don't have something already in your head about what you want to support, you could do this. This was from a couple years ago. CAP was still at 13.5% there, excuse me. Now it's up to 16. But there were two conflicting proposals. OSBI, which is the state superintendent's office, they wanted to get rid of the cap. They wanted to increase the multipliers, K-12 multipliers, and they wanted some money to expand inclusionary practices project. The governor's proposal wanted to keep the cap. They wanted to increase a little bit, but they wanted to keep the cap. They didn't want any increase for K-12, but they wanted a little bit of an increase for preschool special education. And they had $5 million, but they wanted to use it in a little different ways. So I want to take just about 5 minutes. And again, if you want to do this one, that's fine. Or you can come up with your own. But I'm going to walk through this. So why don't you just take a couple minutes and think about either the pros and cons of this example of which one you want to go for, or think about what issue you want to talk about. So just in fact, I'm only going to give you 3 minutes. Take 3 minutes and figure out what issue you're going to talk about. We're going to walk through then like who you are and all the different points. So right now you just have to think about what it is you want to talk about.
This is Yana. Ramona, what if we don't like either? Like, what if
You can say that too. I'm just giving you something to respond to.
yeah.
All right, so hopefully you have an idea of what you're going to talk about. So first, you're going to say, who are you? So you're going to say your name because you have to say your name. If you know it, your legislative district is great. If not, you can say, I'm from Wenatchee, I'm from Seattle, but it's nice if you have your legislative district. And then if there's any group affiliate or whatever your affiliation is to the issue, like you can say, I'm from the PTA. Sometimes group affiliations are good. Sometimes you just need to be careful if you're not actually the official representative of that group. But so who are you? Where are you from? And what's tying you to this issue?
Do you need a volunteer? Is that what you're?
Well, I'm going to do this one by one, and then I'm going to use
Okay.
volunteer to share. All right. So
Okay.
you all had your name, your identifier. Okay. So now you're going to write down what's your issue. So you can do a very quick description. So what is it that you're worried or happy about? Just use really simple language. Okay. So if you're done with what your issue is, your next point is, why do you care about this issue? How is it affecting you or someone you care about? Why does it matter? And again, like taking it to, if it's about kids, taking it to the child. It's about you, taking it to you, but you want that personal aspect to it. All right. And then the next one is, then why should this person care? So in this case, if you're writing to the legislator, why should they care about this issue? Is it something that's happening in their community? How does it affect their constituents? How does it affect the state as a whole? This is basically taking your issue and demonstrating that it's a public issue. And then the final one is then what should they do? So those are the 5. Who are you? The issue? Why do you care? Why should they care? What action should they take? And then when someone is done, I would like a volunteer. It would be awesome if someone could volunteer.
Have any volunteers?
Me too.
Yana.
I get to either way.
What did you write about?
So
Do you want to go? Oh, you muted, Yana.
should I just go?
Yeah, just go.
Okay.
Tell
All
us your.
right. Who's gonna be my clock?
You just go for. Actually, I'll be your clock. Hold on a second.
So I didn't quite write because I'm also cooking dinner because people are, I guess, not capable of that around here, even when mom is sick. So, so I'll probably skip some pieces because I do take a lot of time to edit. But okay. Hello, my name is Yana Parker, and I'm a parent and an advocate working directly with families, and I volunteer on the board of the Seattle Special Education PTSA. I am in the 34th Legislative District. Today, I want to share the impact of the capped funding and regressive taxes. With the limitation on special education funding, we are experiencing a refusal by staff to evaluate students for special education, staff determining that students are not eligible for services or shortage of services. Silva, I have experienced firsthand what it takes to advocate for my disabled children and their rights to equitable education. Civil rights violations, inequitable student outcome, and students with disabilities are not ready for college. I think the sentence is a little crooked, but they are not ready for college academically or with their life skills. We are influencing their success rate by limiting the special education funding. We are impacting their success rate after graduation from high school. Thank you. I mean, it was very bare, but
That was 50 minutes. That was under a minute and a half. And I want to say, you know what I really liked about that, Yana? I think you very successfully, you had this, look, I see what this is happening to my child, but then you also took it broader. It's like, when this is the impact on the state. So that's important. It's like, how is it affecting you, or what is your touch point with this story? But then, like, what's the bigger picture?
yeah, I should have mentioned that I actually have an actual graduate from SPS who we are supporting daily with in his freshman year of college, significantly. That's really a huge burden on a lot of families who can't afford it.
Yeah.
That one I would probably add.
We are close to time. If anyone else wants to do one, we have time. We've also gone through the steps though. So does anyone want to go? Okay, well, hopefully you did this because doing your messaging is really in the moment. And as Yana said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Yana also has some practice because she's done testimony before. So, but really, but you want to make those points. It's like, and don't forget to say what you want them to do. And what you don't want to do is just tell them that you have a problem, because then they're going to be like, well, what do you want me to do about it? So you always want to have a clear action. And if you do, like if you meet with your legislator and you share their story, they'll often say, is there a bill? Because that's where they are. Their headspace during the session is the bill's in play. Like they don't have time to write you a bill while session is going. So that kind of a discussion has to happen during the interim when they're not in session. But if there's a bill running, they can vote for that bill, or if they're on committee, like sometimes I've successfully gotten bills amended. So maybe it didn't include what I wanted, but it kind of fit in. And sometimes you can get something amended, either added in or taken out. So, and again, that's why it's really good to know your people, because they're going to be able to tell you it's this specific bill. So, and there's different, let's see. Yeah, find your people here. I'll email this to you, Mel, but there's a link for different ones. The PTAs are really good because they're going to have somebody who's tracking bills. League of Education Voter also has an education bill tracker, and they keep up on it weekly, so that's really good. If you are interested in some of these other issues, these are just groups that I know will be tracking bills. And
we track bills too. We have a bill tracker that we meet and talk about every week. And we try to align it with our priorities, our legislative priorities that our membership has determined important.
Awesome. And then Mel, some of the links in the chat, but there's other links in here to like what the calendar is. And so there's links in here. If you're interested in the newsletter that I do for the ARC, there's a sign up for that. That's way bigger than education though. So if you just want to worry about
great though, it's a great
little
newsletter.
part
I love
of the
it.
world, that's good. But that we do weekly updates. I'm not going to go into this, but these are just things to consider. There's different stages of change. And a lot of times like advanced messaging is kind of like, no, like if they don't even realize there's a problem, you're going to be talking about, hey, there's a problem. If they agree there's a problem, but they don't necessarily know what the solution is, then you want to be focusing on, hey, and this is the great solution. So there's just different behavioral stages, and that's essentially greetings. But that's what I've got. Social media can be also a really good resource. They can show you what things are working on. It's just we're kind of in flux with social media because we're all upset with our social media providers.
Agreed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had this for an hour. Do we want to go longer?
Oh, what time is it?
I mean, you covered it all, Ramona.
I
just somehow thought I looked and I'm like, is it really 8:30 already? And I'm like, no, it isn't. So it's fine. It's fine.
Right.
Unless
All right,
people have questions, right? So
and I would really recommend, it's like if you do this, first of all, I would just say do it. It's like send your legislator a note. There's also during session, there's a hotline. So like if something is like they don't know if they have enough votes and it's kind of iffy, you might get a call like call the hotline, and they automatic like they say like where do you live? If you don't know their thing, they can look up your district, or they'll ask for the district, and then you give a message and then they forward it to your people. Or you can call offices directly. But when I first started doing this, it's like I was, especially that phone call. I could do an email. I'm comfortable doing emails, but like calling, I was just so scared to call. I don't know why, but I did. I called, I got over it. I started doing somebody else, this isn't my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somebody else showed me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I just started following it. And then at least I knew my bases were covered. So that's my
one tip Robert is asking.
Yes.
So if you are able, go to town halls that legislators are holding. It is often when you ask a question and you're planting the seed that you want during the town halls, often they do recognize you when you are testifying, or you can remind them. When I spoke to you, spoke with you in your town hall, we talked about, and I want to add to that. And that often, if you show up a couple times, they'll start remembering you. And if you make sense, you gain credibility. And that way, you know, you kind of are shortening your, you're getting them to, letting them who you are, they're getting to know you, and they will trust your opinion. So if you make an ask, please pass this bill, and they trust and credit you, then they're more likely to support the bill. So
Yeah.
That is a great tip. Town halls are good. Also, some legislators post, they use social media. So you can also respond on social media. That's really good. Testimony, I have my one tip for if you're giving live testimony, in addition to really keeping it brief, another good reason to keep it brief is if after you like say like your key point of why this is important, pause. Because they have heard yada, 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 and they've heard yada, 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 yada. I mean, it's just like, this is what they hear. And so it's like, in my experience, if I say something and then I can pause, and I have the luxury to pause for a couple seconds, heads literally can come up because they're not used to hearing a pause. So
That's good. That's a good tip.
is
That's a great tip.
pause. Don't load it up. That's why practice this. Practice this with somebody else if you want, you know. Practice.
Sometimes the greatest thing to say is nothing at all.
Yeah, but I have found pausing. I literally, if you can go there in person, it's kind of a rush to go in person, but I mean, literally.
I want to throw up just doing it over online. I can't imagine standing up on. I don't even think that
Well,
would
you
be
don't
good
get
for me.
to stand up. You sit down on a microphone in front of them, and then they're all up. They're elevated, so they're up here,
Ugh,
they're down there,
makes me
and
dizzy just thinking about it.
but you can see how they're taking in your testimony. That's
Right.
the thing. It's a lot easier online. You don't. Last year, I didn't even go down during session. I did it all.
I always like to wonder: are they checking their emails? Are they
And sometimes they are, but sometimes they're listening.
doing
I
their
mean,
grocery list? I don't know.
I'm a person when I'm listening, for me, I don't know, neurodivergence, I don't know. But like for me to hear and take in information, I have to be like, I turn off my camera during my long meetings and I play easy Sudoku because it can't be complicated because that would distract me. But if it's easy, it's kind of like knitting. It's like I actually hear and take in information better if I'm doing something. So I cut them some slack. It's like, yeah, they're looking at it, but that doesn't mean they're not listening. Maybe they're not listening, but you never know. All right. Anyways, go forth.
Thank you.
It's your public policy.
Thanks, Ramona.
thank you so much, Ramona. We really appreciate your work, and not just being here tonight,
Really.
just your work. We watch and admire and learn just watching your testimonies and what you put out. You
We
might
loved your
hear
cut
from us.
sheets last year. They were awesome. Your cut sheets were great last year.
And again, it's like, so you're going to be me in 15 years because I was you. Literally,
I don't
was
be around here, but
you.
it is pretty exhausting to be a parent, I say. And I think a lot of people burn out. And so when they are done, they just kind of leave. And I not to, but you know, things happen. And we do appreciate the Arc of King County just in general having great programs. So
Okay.
Absolutely.
we value your partnership.
All right. And when you sign in a bill, you don't even have to write. You can just click yes or no. So,
Yeah.
all
Right.
right.
That's, yeah. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Robert and Laura, I wanted to end, well, Kate, we'll talk again soon. I'm going to send the slides to you guys, and I'll put in the links to our meetings, to our weekly legislative meetings, if you wanted to come and talk about what bills are coming up and whatnots.
Yeah, Mel, when is the next legislative advocacy meeting? Do you remember?
It's next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday at 12,
Yeah,
right?
at 12. Yeah.
Yeah, and it should be on our calendar. We will double check, but it should be on our calendar. It is on the event. No, not Eventbrite, but it is on Facebook in the events. So you can also
I'll put our website in here
to
too.
our calendar. What's that?
I'm going to put our website in the chat.
You
At all.
probably turn off the recording.
Oh, yeah. Let me do that.
Yeah.
And stop.